Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm super excited to be bringing you the much requested how to make disco house music like Toro Y Moi. This is one of my personal favorites. I was really inspired by him early on in producing. He was one of the first few producers that I really got into that inspired me to make a lot of stuff before I even discovered house and techno. So this is definitely one of my favorites I've ever done. As usual, you can get the full project file as well as the samples and MIDI presets, everything like that from this video. It's available right at the top of the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there. And if you haven't already liked the video or subscribed, make sure to go do that, and let's get started. So, the first thing that we have here is the E-piano. So the chord progression here is D sharp minor 7, A sharp minor 7, this B major 7, and then this chord here, which is kind of taking similar notes from that same chord, but then just kind of playing them a little bit differently. So if you look at these, they're all kind of like voiced in a unique way, like I'll show you. So basically, yeah, you can see we have there's our D sharp minor 7, our A sharp minor 7, and then you can see, yeah, that's where that B major comes in there. And then this chord, there you go. So you can see it's the same chord as this one, but then it's all in how we voice these and how we're spreading them out across the different octaves and just kind of making the chords feel different this way because, you know, you're going to be working with pretty basic like major and minor chord progressions from this style. You know, you're not going to be going too far from that. And once you know how to work with major and minor 7 chords, you know, that's really the main thing. But then to add that extra layer of depth to it, this is really what you have to do. You know, you don't want to just play like the basic chords like it's a lot more interesting when it's like this. And you can even get more mileage out of this chord too, because just by moving 2 of the notes, we can make it into a whole different chord and really change the progression. So that's something that you want to keep in mind, like just writing a simple progression like this, but then taking the notes in the chords and kind of flipping them on their head. And that's how you can really go and make some exciting stuff that's still going to work with vocal melodies and stuff like that. Now for the sound here, it's 2 layers. So we have this crunchy piano. You can see it's there. That's going through this guitar amp, so here's without it. And then with it, again without it. And then with it, it just has a lot more character. And then we have this one, which is very similar. We can hear this just kind of fills in the like deeper part of the sound. You know, this has some nice mid-range and high end to it. But then it really fills out when you add in the second one. And on the group of those, we have just a little bit of reverb, just kind of giving it some space. A tiny bit of drum bass to fatten this up and really kind of, you know, just make this sound really full. And it also gives it some texture. With this style of music, the texture is really important. If it sounds too flat, like if you don't have like some kind of saturation or some kind of warmth on everything like this, ultimately your track is going to feel kind of weak and it's not really going to have that same vibe like you want. And the final thing here is I just have a compressor side chaining this only a little bit to the kick. You can hear that. Not a whole lot, but it just gives it a little bit more kind of like movement in the mix. And then we have the bass line. So yeah, this is a live bass. Now it's being made with MIDI. I'm using this electric bass sound, this electric bass palm here. So it's kind of like a palm muted bass. And then I'm putting it through a bass amp as well as this bass cabinet. You can see we have it set on the 4x10 bass speaker setting. And then I also have a compressor, which is just side chaining this a little bit to the kick. This one's really more about the bass line. Now, obviously, like, this bass line is filling in a lot of the track. If I take this out, you know, it feels like it's really missing something. this bass line really needs to carry most of the track if you're writing a track like this. So essentially, it's just going to come down to really just working with the chord progression. Like you can see we go D sharp, A sharp, and then that G sharp there, which is yeah, you can see that note from that last chord, but it kind of just resolves really nicely onto the G sharp. So when I started this bass line, I started with just dun 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 dun, like just those two notes, and then you go, and all these extra notes in between are just notes from the scale. So like, since we're in the key of D sharp minor, we have like A sharp, which will be the 5th. We have the C sharp, which would be the minor 7th. Another D sharp, another A sharp, a G sharp, which is the 4th. So like, all just notes from the scale, but it's just how well you can make those fit together. And then the groove of them. Kind of using the higher notes and the lower notes to create a groove like that when it goes up to like boom, boom, boom. And yeah, so that is the bass line. Again, like, it's really, you just gotta get in there and start writing notes. You know, I recommend you start with your chord progression first. You know, write that out the way that I showed you, where I've written out the actual, like, chords on the piano. And then you can go and make this bass line. And just start with the root notes right at the start of each bar. And then you can add in those extra notes that are all just gonna be notes from the original scale that you're in. But then it's all about just how you make them groove. Then we have this little pad. Which just plays, so it's just D sharp and then A sharp, which is, like I said, the 5th. So it's just going back and forth between those. You know, let's just add something extra to the chord progression to have, like, the droning notes. It's not that loud. You can hear how that adds just some musical context there. And for the sound, this is made with analog. We have 2 saw waves here going into a low pass filter, which actually has a little bit of an envelope on it, so you kind of get a little bit of a pluck at the start there like that. And then we have the amp envelope just set like that. I have a bit of vibrato. You can see, like, actually quite a lot of vibrato. Some unison, and then we also have this glide as well, which makes it go like, you can hear that just quickly when it goes to the next note. And yeah, then we just have a bit of reverb. You can see it's a pretty long reverb, pretty wet. We also have a bit of drum bus, which you can see, yeah, just on there, giving the sound a bit more fatness, a bit more character. Then we just have this being sidechained to the kick. This one's being sidechained a lot heavier to the kick. And then we also have this high pass filter at the end to make sure it's not going to get in the way of the bass. And that's it for the pad. And then we have this lead. So yeah, this is, I was trying to write that like super like 80s influence Toro Y Moi style melody where it's just super like warped and funky sounding, but still just very tasteful notes. You can see, the thing that I've noticed with these melodies is it's the notes, which are usually pretty simple notes that are just going to be from whatever scale you're in. You know, we're in D sharp minor, so you can see these are all D sharp minor notes. But then also the rhythm, you know, like the way we have how it goes like dun 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 dun. You know, just little stuff like that, having this groove with the chords can really create a nice atmosphere, and I think that's something that's very unique to a lot of this music. For the sound, this one is made with analog. You can see it's a square wave, actually 2 square waves, just detuned a little bit, going into a low pass filter which has this very fast and plucky envelope on it, you know, making it just tight and like, a little bit of key tracking on that as well. I'm in the amp envelope like that. And then we just have a bit of vibrato, which you can see it's a pretty heavy amount. And then we have some glide. Then we have this chorus, which you can see this feedback is up quite a bit, so here's without it. And then with it. You can hear it just kind of gives things a bit more of a metallic sort of feel. Then we have this audio effect track, and this is actually doing the reverb. So what's happening here is we have our one chain here. Which you can see is completely wet, and then we have this chain, which has no reverb on it. So what we're doing, the reason why we're doing this is because of this technique that I actually heard in some of the older Toro Y Moi tracks, where essentially like you would have a lead like this, which has got like, you know, a lot of ambience, a lot of reverb, but then you want to add something a little bit cooler to the reverb. You know, you don't want the reverb to just be your standard, just hit a note and it plays a bunch of reverb. So what we did is actually have the reverb and delay here sidechain to the dry signal. So now you get that kind of bouncing off of the main sound. It's like, you know, you just kind of get a more interesting feel with it. Like I said, I heard this in a lot of these older tracks, and I think it just kind of gives you like a cooler feel with your reverb. You know, it's just going to give it something that's a little bit different than just like standard basic reverb that everybody's already heard. So after that audio effect track, we just have a bit of drum bass. Again, you know, it's on almost every sound here, but it's just so good for this style of music when you want to really have that like warm analog character to these digital sounds. And then finally, I just have a high pass filter. And yeah, that's it for the lead. Then we have the drums. So something you'll notice here is the drums are all under one roof. They're all in the same group here. And usually I wouldn't do that. You know, usually I would have like the percussion and the hi-hats and the kick and all those kind of in their own little places. However, the reason why we're doing this here is because we want a more kind of like textured and like evenly textured feel to the drums, I should say. Like, you want all the drums to kind of feel like they're in the same world. And so the best way to really do that is to get them all in a group together, you know, get things sounding good on their own, which I'm going to break these all down individually, and then put them through some group processing, which I'm going to show you. So the first thing here is the hi-hats. So it's just this one main one. And then these bonus hi-hats that just play off of it. Yeah, they're very sparing, but they just give you a little bit more space. And then those are in a group together, which you can see as a group, they're going through a bit of flanger. This, without that. And with it. That's something I've heard in a lot of his tracks, like that subtle flanger on the hi-hats can add like some nice movement and kind of like that more analog feel. We have a short reverb on there, which you can hear. And then we just have a high pass filter to make sure that this isn't going to get in the way of the low end at all. Then we have these bongos. So yeah, it's just 4 different bongos here inside of a drum rack. I'll show you the originals, just so you can hear them without any of this processing. So yeah, it's just those 4 different bongos. And then you just put them in a drum rack here. And then they're going through a little bit of reverb, and then the drum bass here. So this really helps with these, because this kind of goes back to what I was saying about the overall drums. You want these to kind of have a very even texture. You want them to feel like they're all in the same place. And drum bass is really great for that. You can see I actually cut off a lot of the high end, so we're just getting this more deep. It really just kind of sounds like it's being sampled kind of feel. Then we have the kick. There's nice fat, like live disco style kick. We have the shaker. Just kind of giving some more live elements. And then we also have a snare. Which you'll notice it's kind of a shorter snare. You don't really want like a big you just want a little And now the length of your snare, I learned while doing this, is going to make a big difference for the actual feel of the track. Like if you get a longer snare and try to drop it in there, you're not really going to get the right groove. And on the group of drums, like I said, we want everything to go into some group processing. And what better for this than the famous drum bus? So you can see, I've got this one here. It's on the medium setting. We've got the drive and crunch turned up a bit. We also have the damp knob turned down. Now this is important. Here's with that at the normal setting. And then with it here. It's really subtle. You don't even notice it that much. but you do know that something's missing. You know, you can tell that there's like this high end. It's just kind of like, you know, when you cut that out and you get the hi-hats kind of sounding a bit deeper and you get everything kind of more in that same place, it just makes all those drums feel a lot more even. And if you don't want to use bus, you could just use like a EQ, you know, you could turn down like the high end like that or do something, but that little high end cut is going to make a really big difference for getting that more even kind of like lo-fi, fat, saturated texture. It's not always just the saturation, and you want to do it on all the drums at once. And yeah, so that is it for the drums, and that's also going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video is available right at the top of the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Thank you so much for all the support, guys. Everybody who picks up these sample packs, it really helps keep me going. You know, I don't make a whole lot just with YouTube alone. But with the sample packs and stuff like this, I'm able to keep going and keep bringing you guys tutorials like this that we've all been waiting for a long time. So yeah, thank you so much everybody for the support, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.